Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. on Twitch. That's 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 82 of Breaking Step. Tibs dropped to his knees next to the unmoving jackal. His chest rose and fell, so there was time. He pulled Purity for a weave, only for it to cease to be as it left his bracer. With a screamed curse, he put a hand on his friends and pushed Purity in order to form the weave inside him, but immediately pulled his hand away as the armor faded. He cursed again, memories of Karina's body fading to nothing under the push of Purity from the clerics. At least he hadn't touched skin. Touching exposed skin made him sense the fading essence. We need to get Jackal out of here. Okay, he could do this. He let go of Purity and his reserve returned to the white of his element. A splint wouldn't help, since all it did was keep the broken essence in place so it could replenish itself and, in the process, heal what was damaged. What he had to do was the replenishing and not break anything more in the process. Oh, I need that. I'm going to have to retweak something in a later chapter. The first bush, as gentle as it was, shove it because of this scene right here. The first bush, as gentle as it was, shoved Jackal's essence out of the channel, the red-brown fading faster without its protection. Stopping kept more essence from escaping, but now he could see he'd also broken the essence there. A splint fixed that. A series of splint fixed the multiple breaks throughout Jackal's body, but they faded the instant he stopped supplying the essence, which meant that if he removed his hand, they would come undone. He had the essence in his bracer, so he could channel another one, but in this place, he couldn't will it across the distance to maintain the splint, which was how he'd grown used to doing it. The few times which was how he'd grown used to doing it the few times he had to rely on them. Weaves of purity were much more efficient. What he needed was for the essence to move into the channels by itself. He smiled as he remembered explaining to Karina how he went about speeding up his reserve back in his early days, how he imagined the essence resting on a table and tipping it so it would slide into his reserve along the incline. Essence flowed into Jackal and over the channels, but some made it in without disturbing Jackals. Okay, so I do have the solution. Okay, I'm just going to have to rework the wording in the other chapter. It wasn't much, but he thought it was more than what was leaking out. Would Jackal wake up once there was enough essence there, or would the injuries have to be healed before that could happen? How long could Tibs keep this off? Keep this up before what was left of his reserve was gone? Where's my exit? We're working on it, Mez snapped from away. Come, Dar, can't you sense where the openings are hiding? My ability to sense secret is dependent on essence being allowed to flow. As this is not happening here, I will be of no more help to look no more help in locating them than looking at the wall while the ground shook, then the ground shook, then the grinding of stone. Tibbs looked up, ready to curse whatever else Stowe was sending their way, to see the wall lowering as essence flowed back. The walls are coming down, As yelled, pointing out the obvious. Tibs hesitated. Now that he had essence, was it better to take Jekyll out for the clerics to heal him, or should he keep adding his essence to help him regain his strength, even if Tibs was running low on it himself? Whatever it might mean, considering how vast his reserve. Oh boy. Okay. Or should he keep adding his essence to help him regain his strength, even if Tibs was running low on it himself? Whatever that might mean. Whatever that might mean, considering how vast his reserve was. There were risks with anything he tried, but he figured it was to his advantage to stay in the dungeon with its higher concentration of essence. He mentally changed where he supplied the splint with the essence from his reserve to the one in his bracer, then stopped pouring it into Jackal and sensed for the effect. As far as he could tell, the leaking hadn't accelerated, and with what he'd added, he had more time. He simply didn't know how much that was. He started he started on a large purity weave, then stopped. Those went everywhere, but he had no control over how well what he had no control over how well what got fixed. Yeah. How well any specific injuries got fixed. How well any specific injuries got fixed, as far as he could tell. As far as he could tell, it worked harder at the surface, then got weaker the deeper in, as it had already spent itself on previous injuries. That was usually fine, since when Jekyll got broken to the point Tibs needed to do this, it was about piecing him together, and that was usually closer to the surface. Which made no sense. The bones were in the middle of his arm and legs, and he breathed the panic down. Essence didn't work the way the world did, or how Tibs often felt it should. Deeper here didn't mean deeper in the body, not exactly. Just like when Don talked about Tim's senses deeper within the wall's essence. He made a smaller weave and sent that to the largest break in Jekyll's essence. Shouldn't we get him outside? Nez whispered, much closer now. It is unwise to move someone as injured as he is, Commodore said. The attempt might aggravate damage to the point where I'm healing him, Tibs said, fighting the panic again as he added more small weaves. I don't need small weaves, which seemed to have no effect on the overall loss of essence. What? Don cursed, and Tibs looked up, eyes going wide at the blood, cuts, and breaks he sensed in the sorcerer's essence. He wasn't losing any, but it looked bad enough. It explained why Mez was supporting most of his weight. You should see the other guy, the archer said, grinning. This idiot here just threw himself at it and clung on like it was his favorite girl comforting him. Comforting him. You were going Dunn's voice broke, and Tibs didn't think it was because of the pain. And Tibs was right. Once I touched it, I was able to push corruption in, and now that was because of the pain. Don forced a smile. I hung on. I'll heal. Tibs looked at Jekyll. Do you have enough to spare? I don't know. His throat squeezed shut as his eyes burned. Put me down, Don said. Are you sure? Miss asked. I need to help him, and I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be fast. And Don yelled and glared at the archer. Tibbs nearly laughed at the "You told me to do this" look. Maz returned to the sorcerer, but it turned into a sob. Abyss, I never want to be in this much pain ever again. Don took a few breaths. What's the problem? I don't know. He wiped his eyes. Tibbs, I'm going to specify. Tibbs wiped at his eyes. I don't know what to heal. I'm putting weaves on the biggest breaks, but I can't tell if it's helping. He's losing essence from everywhere. Each break is causing essence to leak out, correct? Don's instructor tone wasn't as effective, interrupted by the winces and groans as he moved in small ways. Tibbs nodded, adding another weave. And the bigger the leak, the more deadly the injuries. Yeah, Tibbs froze as he realized he didn't know. He always went for the biggest first, but he usually had a weave over all of them well before there were risks. He looked at Jackal, sensing if the essence was vanishing from each break in a way that corresponded to the size of the break. Ah, essence was vanishing in a way that corresponded to the size of the break, but there were so many of them and they were all blending together and he didn't know. Breathe, Tibbs. The harshness in the tone was followed by a gasp, a pained gasp. Slow down. You can't help Jackal if you spiral into panic. He got his breath. Da, 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 Don caught his breath. How long do you have to fix him all? I don't know. Tibbs barely kept from screaming. He forced shuddering breath. I don't know when there isn't enough left to help. With Radcliffe, it was too quick, and I didn't know how to do it. Sebastian put those green stone on Karina, so I couldn't help her. Breathe, Tibbs. What happens right now if you stop what you're doing? Can you tell me that? He sensed the essence concentration. Was it higher than when he'd started? Was the loss slower? Why couldn't he? He breathed. It was higher than when he'd first arrived at Jackal's side. What he'd added had done that. The loss? He couldn't be certain, but he'll be okay for a little bit if I stop now. It's going to take some time before he loses the essence I was able to give him. Then, if that happens, you can simply give him more and I'm low on my essence. You're what? The disbelief might have been funny if not for Jackal dying and Don's pain cutting it off. I have limits. There's a bit of the word angry Don. Angry Don thought he could. He breathe. The sorcerer caught his breath. How close to reaching it are you? Tibbs shrugged. I never paid attention. Whatever Don was about to say got bit back. Then the sorcerer was pained again. Okay, that's for later. Tibbs sighed. You can't just go on. You can't just go on not knowing what. Yes, yes, I have to know it all. Tibbs snapped. I have to get better at everything. I get it. Is the abyssless ever going to get smaller, or are you going to add to it all the time? Don chuckled and winced. But the important thing is you have time, so you need to use it strategically. It isn't always the biggest injuries that are the most life-threatening. The body is complex. Sometimes it's something small where it can't be seen that ends up causing the most damage. How do you know so abyss much? Tibbs demanded in exasperation. I read a lot, Donna replied flatly. Your advantage is that you can sense the flow of our essence. What you need to do is not just sense what's flowing away, but if there's any of it that's where it shouldn't be. Don hesitated. That needs to be dealt with too. When the guy who knows more than anyone else hesitates, Mez says, I think it's time to proceed with a lot of caution. Life essence isn't something that's known about, Don replied tersely, then took a breath. I mean, scholars have written about something that might be it. They call it the life force. It's how they explain why the dungeons can't affect us directly, or how being close to someone who died keeps them from absorbing the bodies. But nothing I've read has a certainty about it. It's all theories because there's no way to know for certain. What I'm doing is drawing similarity between how physicians go about deciding what needs to be operated on first and hoping there's a correlation. Something else you read? Mez asked. This is from speaking to some. The university back home also teaches physiology. How do I know if some of the life essence doesn't belong? Tibbs asked. Finding a few areas that had it. Based on what you told me of how it registers to you, the first thing to look for is a lack of flow. That was because it's always flowing, right? Not just you forgetting to mention it? Tibbs nodded, ignoring the accusatory tone. What else? I'm not sure. Physicians will bleed out those places where blood is pooling, but this is life essence. I don't know if removing it won't do more damage. Can you get it to flow? Tibbs shook his head. It's not in a channel. Can you put it back in a channel? I don't think so. When I tried adding my essence to his, I did more damage. I think that unless it goes in by itself, forcing it doesn't help. Then it's not contributing anything. Can you remove some and see how it affects the overall loss? Tibs found one by Jackal's heart. Carefully, he drew it away, avoiding the channels and anywhere that was already leaking out. This was like how to unlock the doorway to access. This was like how they unlocked the doorway to access the floors, only the opposite. He had to make sure to keep the essence out of the channels. When we leave, Tibs said, Tibs mentioned concentration. You're reading about purity and how to use the arcanus with it. Then you are teaching me. With that essence removed, he paid attention to any change to the rest. Any changes, roll to the rest. I thought those are going to be easy books to get. Purity clerics are highly secretive. Kamdar would have an easier time finding those. Why don't you ask that cleric you're training? Maz told ask Kamdar. Ask Kamdar. She's a cleric who wants to fight. She might be open to sharing secret. I do not allow speaking while I train her. To allow her free reign of her mouth means I must listen to her sharing a belief. I do not wish for that to stray into our opinion of what I am and what should be done. Done about those like me. She wouldn't care. Tibs found another one, slightly larger, and since he sensed no changes, he drew it out. She isn't like the others. Purity clerics are not known for the changes in their stance. Their beliefs are thought to all children's. It is the earliest stories any of them will remember their parents recounting. That they be, you know what, that's going to be semicolon, that they be from a cleric family or not. I know better than to waste my time hoping she will be unlike the others I have encountered. Then Tibs can ask her, Miss said. You two have talked before, right? He removed another pool of essence. How do I explain why I want to learn those things? Just saying I'm curious how it works isn't going to be enough this time. Still no changes from removing this one. You can explain what you... I would advise against that. Kamdar interrupted the archer. I will not claim that she will be as prejudiced about what you are as she is about me, as you think she is, Mess corrected. But as an organization, purity clerics are no better than the guild. What you tell, she will tell them. You tell... you know what? No. It's dialogue. That's how he speaks. What you tell, she will tell them. That they tell the guild or not will depend on if they want to take you for their own so they can improve you, or decide you should be the guild's burden. I think I got them all. He told. At this point, I need to. Tibs. Hold on. It's not changing anything. You make it sound like they... Mez hesitated. I don't know. Try... I like Dale. That's gonna be... Tibs hesitated. I don't know. Try to fix him? Then go back to healing the leaking, Dawn replied. At worst, this was for nothing, but at least it's no longer a worry. That is exactly what I expect they do. That is exactly what I expect they will do, Kamdar said. Purity is obsessed with the people who have purity, Tibs corrected, forming a weave and applying it to the largest lake. Purity doesn't care who's different. Kamdar was silent, and Tibs applied more weave, wishing their effect were more pronounced, and reminding himself this wasn't a quick fix. You are correct. I apologize. I, too, can fall within the belief that the element is the same as the people wielding its essence. Purity clerics only care about fixing all that is different from them. If it was within their power, they would go to war against more than those like me. They would seek to wipe all who do not believe as they do from the world, leaving behind only them. If even that, Mess said. Wars are costly to all sides. Don't your people value life over power? Don asked. I didn't think they'd have tales of war. We have those tales, so we'll know war should never be something we want. Tibs formed another weave, then was at a loss as to where to put it. Jackal might be more purity than earth at the moment. He was no longer losing essence, but he didn't seem to be gaining any either. Okay, so this should be his breathing's even, Don said, and Tibbs focused on the sorcerer, not understanding. Jackal's breathing is better, deeper. It's a good sign. Tibbs sensed Jackal. I think I put weave on all the I think weaves, that's going to be pearl on all the injuries. What's your reserve like? Tibbs snorted. I have some, but I can't tell you how little there is. I do have enough to heal you. Don waved the suggestion aside, which surprised Tibbs. Shouldn't being able to absorb life essence make it easier to refill your reserve? Don asked. It's everywhere. It's in everyone, Tibbs corrected. Then the other essences. You can channel whatever the best is. And the dungeon figured that out a long time ago. He uses a lot of will when he unleashes essence attack, and he's done something to the essence that makes the wall that makes, oh boy. All right, that needs to be, and he's done something to the essence within the walls that makes it difficult to pull from them. I also have to focus on pulling the essence in, and the dungeon has been keeping us busy. But what? Jekyll croaked. You're alive! Tibbs exclaimed. Of course he was alive. He'd said it the whole time. I'd like to argue that, the fighter said, then sighed. I can't believe I went through all that, and there was nothing in the chest. And that concludes chapter 82 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it is up on Royal Road for free, along with the other books. And if you want to read ahead of Royal Road and support me in the process, that is on my Patreon. And if you want to listen to these live, it is every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.